All right, welcome back into another courageous conversation with Marleen and Sam. Today we are going to be discussing the timeline and trajectory of launching business, launching brand, and that reinvention period that we are all in now across the globe as we look at reframing, restructuring, and rebuilding all the standards with which we build and amplify business. Marleen, I would love to hear your perspective, your journey, how your incredible career shifted after 15 years experience, now stepping into another level of growth and opportunity for your contribution to your clients.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for having me again. I really love this. Well, so actually, my journey started quite a long time ago, and I was very courageous doing that during the financial crisis. So I started my career at KPMG after my graduation, and that to me was a very safe environment. I
Mhm.
always wanted to have my own management consultancy firm, but still I thought I would choose. I would like to choose the safe path of being
Mm.
in this environment where I can grow. It was a very good learning experience. Obviously, going in very large corporates,
Mhm.
um, being involved in very big programs that really impacted the organization. So that to me was a very safe space. But
Mhm.
on the other hand, you really always felt that there was something more that I wanted to do, especially when you come in, you just start as an advisor. And when you
Mhm.
have this ambition to become a partner, that is a very, wow, a thin line and a road to walk. And
Yeah.
it's not very paved for, just also saying for females or women and in general. Um, because the environment is very male dominated. It's also quite white in some to
Mhm.
some extent. So there's little less reflection within my environment. So when I looked around, I really thought this is something that I would like to create by myself. So I started. I said, well, I'm just going to start by myself, and I started in September 2008. Well, this was like the moment that Lehman just fell down, everything
Mhm.
within, because I worked in the financial sector. So everything
Yeah.
just was like, what is happening? But I still wanted to do this. So I spoke to the program director. He said, well, you're still busy with your own company. I said, yes, I'm still busy. He said, well, this is a very difficult period, but actually I would like to hire you because everything for us coming down from central to more decentral, and you see now the same
Mhm.
situation is a similar situation right now. So he said, I'm just going to try to get you in so that you can rebuild and reorganize my program office, more decentralized, focus on management information, being very ad hoc, and just have everything within my arm's length of management. So we did, and I just started to build, and that was actually embarking my entrepreneurial journey. Looking back, that was quite difficult because I really needed to pivot around and just everything. It just also was quite strange situation because people were being laid off, and on the other hand, I was just building on a new organization.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes you really will feel the discomfort, but then I just this I try to stay with my vision and just building on what is needed from my perspective and what is needed from the client perspective. So that
I
was
think
from 2008.
I think what's so fascinating about having that agile environment being the kickoff point for you is it's similar to mine, right? Where I had a mentor when I started, 18, 19 years old, and he was showcasing to me and sharing for me an agile form of the market, right? So rather than standard corporate where it's highly structured, you toe a thin line, you stay in your tight little box. There was this agility that was built into the very foundation of my career, and it kept me inventive throughout the entirety of my career. Because when you start off in agility, when you start off in malleability, when you start off in bringing chaos to order, that becomes a happy place. It becomes this area where you can see problems as they're unfolding and know that there's a linchpin to pull to bring them back to order.
Yes.
Would you agree with that? I mean, for me, I get very excited in that space. I think for me, it's very compelling to see these big businesses, these big organizations, like you mentioned, decentralizing. And I think that's the point that we're coming into now, right? When we think about these large, well-oiled machines where human capital was not at the forefront, but structure was at the forefront, right? There was this demise that took place. There was this minimization of ingenuity that was taking place, right? You need synergy in order to create rapid growth and expansion. However, we're noticing that with this agility that's coming into the market, that's coming into business, you can sit in this place where reinvention comes with ease. And I think that's very compelling. And I would love to hear your thoughts to go a little deeper on that.
Oh, I really love how you just explain it, because that has really, really resonated with how I felt at that point.
Yeah.
It's just like, just you have this chaos, and I really love chaos, because when it's the best chaos, is just, those are the best situations, because then I know I can be really built in the structure that I had in mind. And also, obviously, what is with in together with the assignment, but then it's just taking that, like you said, just taking this from a structural environment in an agile environment, and then just taking out the elements. Those are the lesson learned, that you're just reinventing again and applying again and building from that point of view. And just when you reach this certain level of baseline, then you just really reinvent again, and then that makes that you're being this innovative structure that you're creating. You have the structure, because I think I'm very fond of structures. You really need to have structures, even though it's chaos. In chaos, you need to create the structure to build further, because that is your basis for your future road. But when you have that, and you take this flexibility and you reinvent to a certain level, just above everything what you created before, then you're capable of in creating a sustainable environment, and just that can just last for a longer period. And I did that also for my own organization, so that just, well, until 2019, 2020 beginning, it was very successful in that, building partnerships in this, creating the stable environment, that people know that you're the authority in what you're doing within your field of expertise, and then creating environment and infrastructures around that just cater for a better solution.
Yeah. This idea of bringing chaos to order and providing an agile structure with it, I think the malleability with which you can micro segment a business, correct, and play with the smaller and the nuanced amendments and shifts is important to think about when reinvention needs to occur within an organization. How do we make it seamless or fluid for the employees and the natural applications that need to exist within that team or that environment, or the end-to-end profitability of a business, right? How do we make these micro adjustments within a division, within a team, that bring out or bring about new opportunity? I think that's really fascinating for so much of businesses to start being aware of, coming into, right? Working in that space where you don't have to take dynamite to it, right?
No.
When reinvention needs to occur, I know in so many of my different organizations that I was a part of, from a consultancy standpoint, we needed to find a new way of operating, or a new way of coming into the retail space. So I was in retail, corporate retail in New York City, worked with fine beauty, fine jewelry, so many of these different arenas. And the human capital side, we needed to amend the way that we were reaching into the community base. And this micro niching has become incredibly important, because we needed to fine tune our assortments. We needed to fine tune the conversations and the copy and the marketing and the sales tactics done in each of these regions, which was really powerful, really beautiful, because when you micro niche down the engagement that you bring to market, then you're really differentiating yourself from that big corporate wheel that dehumanized for such a long period of time. I'd love for you to play in that space a little bit with that decentralizing and going into that texture of engagement.
It is decentralizing and just choosing the right people that can really cater within this organization. It's all about, like you said, when you're using your human capital, it just actually is not the good word to just mention, but just taking it from an organizational point of view, those are the assets that are most valuable. So those are the people that you need to select, and according to your core values. So knowing that, and also telling them that if change are occurring, that they really need to respond in a certain way that you would really like them to respond, what is needed from their perspective to do their job better. And just creating this environment that they know what is going to happen, that you're not creating uncertainty, but that you at least discuss this in a very transparent or clear way, that they know what is happening. Change is always very uncomfortable. We know that in every level. But then if you have the right people working with you, they would really know and sense that this is the mean to the end, that they need to adjust to be and to sustain. So I think it starts with just selecting the right people, feeling that they have this flexibility, or feeling that they have this loyal feeling towards delivering and service that you would like to provide. So it starts with that.
I think the next level for me is definitely transparency, top down, full transparency, top down and bottoms up. Bottoms up needs to be able to, the frontline workers, the frontline teams, they need to be able to showcase the challenges that they're experiencing and know that when these new initiatives come from, the corporate office coming down, or a consultancy team in partnership, that there's awareness of the current challenges, not just the ethereal or the perceived, but that the good work has been done to interview these frontline workers, to interview across the organization, to understand the true challenges and pitfalls. And again, not just that perceived. Talk about that work of really evaluating current structure before change is made, because change management is an incredible facet of business development, but the change management process of really evaluating current state is so important. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's like you mentioned, it's very important. It's just all assessing what is the impact. So mentioning this is the current state and this is a to be state. And what is the impact if we're going to shift from a certain point of view? So if you create this blueprint around this, then you can just showcase what is going to happen from that point of view. Just actually thinking and saying this is also why I have just last year rethink and rethought my business, because I think if you would just at some point we have this in a virtual reality environment, just showcasing people, this is what we said that is going to happen, and then let them see what is going to happen within the processes. That is just, to me, I really thought I really need to create this, the 5 pillars around this, to have this environment created, and just let people see that this was the situation. What are the benefits? The benefits are we going to reflect within the future, obviously. But if they are not working, take from the lesson learned, taking your inefficiency out, taking your ineffectiveness out, and then reprogressing that into the future, taking people with you in the future, making them feel responsible for that, and just working with their talents. I think you have the key to being more successful with your new structure.
Yeah, you touched on a few things that are really, really critical there. Understanding the facets of your team that make them unique and make them stand out. Yes. Right? What are the greatest areas of expertise that you have team in place for? And in that inventory process and evaluation process, what are your gaps? What are your holes? What is missing from that next level optimization? What is missing from that next level of opportunity within your current team so that you can get to that future state? The evaluation process cannot be shortchanged. It truly does need to take time and attention. Make sure you're digging deep and having standardized metrics with which you are evaluating that current structure.
Yes, I think the measurement and the metrics is very important in this. That is, you just cannot be, if you would like to have clear and direct communication, you can only have clear and direct communication via the metrics. Otherwise, people need to see the difference. People need to see the results, and then they can also comprehend what is needed from their point of view. So if you take them, have this interaction in between, and just let them understand what you had in mind, and let them understand what the data is talking to you from that point of view, having the metrics in place and just measuring whether it's on track or not, I think then your people will understand and just take the responsibility and just go from there.
I think what comes up next for me is that quantitative versus qualitative nature of putting a new plan in place, right? When you're missing the baseline characteristics or the baseline known factors of a certain vision, but maybe someone outside of the organization or outside of that division comes up with a new strategy, but the baseline assumption of the operating practices is simply missing from the scenario. Talk about when that comes up in an organizational restructure or re-envision, how that can be addressed quickly so that less time is lost.
That's a very good one, because nowadays we just see that people are getting appointed for only 2 or 3 years. So they have this vision, and then you have this gap between their vision and what is really baselined already. Mm-hmm. So it's very difficult for them to make this change that they had envisioned and they had in mind, because they're just not communicating with the rest of the organization. The operation is not ready for their plan, and also not within this short time frame of 2 years. So that is something that you really need to take into consideration, that you cannot just shift from only a vision into operations. This really needs to be incorporated. People need to be taken in and need to be shown what is the result and what is their benefit at the end of the day. Because it's a people business, and people would like to see what is their what is it for them in the end of the day, and how they can be put in such a position that their talents are being utilized from that point of view.
Yeah, making sure that the talent feels appreciated is one of the greatest facets that cannot be overlooked, because when your team feels that they're overlooked, that's when the divisiveness or the roadblocks start to come into play, right? When a team feels as though they're being they may not yet be receptive to the fact that new technology is coming on board, but if there's going to be an alteration into the long-standing practices that somebody has performed, it's definitely a sensitive topic. It's definitely a sensitive shift and opportunity for that transparency and collaboration. Ask for collaboration within any new development process to ensure that the texture of that division, or perhaps the linchpin silent leader in the division, is accommodated. So often in my line of work, I would see that someone wouldn't realize the silent leader in a team and bypass them. Talk about that, maybe where it sneaks up on you unless you truly have those metrics of evaluation in place.
That's a very good point, because it's a very good point that you mentioned. Having a silent leader means that is actually your most valuable asset that you have, because that is someone that is most loyal, that is someone that just have probably stayed for a longer period, and just really adapted to all the different situations and make that to hear his point or her point of view working. I see it, you mentioned it very well. I see it quite often, and those are quite often also the more elderly, more experienced employees, and they really feel like, it's more the fear that they feel that they cannot adapt to the technology, or so I think it's very good to just take them aside and just show them what is their value, and show them and appoint them just also to tell people how they can just take them into the journey and make them responsible. That will make them feel very valuable within the organization. And from there you can just create little groups, create little teams that work together to the solution, and just present the silent leader as the leader that can just discuss this and make him feel more valuable within the organization and within the team.
Yeah, giving them that platform to voice their awarenesses, right? Because as you pointed out, so many new leadership teams come in for 2 to 3 years. They don't have the history. They do not realize that someone's been on that team for 10, 15 years. They've seen 5 leaders come through. They've seen half a dozen leaders come through. They know we've tried XYZ a dozen times. And if you have, as a new leader coming in, if you take the time to sit with these long-term employees and understand what they've witnessed as they've sat in their chair, it's incredibly powerful. I've seen it take months out of transition periods for a leader to understand what is the DNA of my team. What have they been experiencing? How many times have they been forced to reinvent without the support to back it up? And that highlights and showcases for the new leadership team, what roadblocks they might anticipate. Has your team felt that they've been ignored? Because that's a major linchpin you can pull from day one as a leader. Get down to the front line and talk to your people. Ask for the texture of the team and the division. Just because you are an expert in France does not mean you can come into New York City and run a business. Just because you've been at, a large corporation of a similar financial capacity, but a different field of expertise, does not mean you can come in and run it unless you're willing to get that texture from your team.
I experienced this within my years of working. It's actually, I'm coming in as the expert, but that doesn't mean that I know the organization. So it starts with getting to know the organization. And from there on, I can build on the structure. Just talking with people, knowing and telling them what is needed, and just taking them into this journey and make them feel responsible, that at the end of the day, they know that I will leave. And but then they will know that they build together towards this new situation. And I think that is very important, the communication, just talking to people, and also being willing to just sit next to them and just work together, only for a half an hour whatsoever, but then you can really understand what is their point of view from the bottom up, and then just saying, well, okay, well, I see it from this point of view, and it will really benefit you if you will work in certain level. We'll take certain 30% out of your work, and then we can just concentrate or focus more on the efficiency part. What do you think about that? So really make them more responsible and taking them through this journey. I experienced this for many years, but it's like I said, just coming in as an expert doesn't mean, you already said it, doesn't mean that you can take over. It just means that you really need to sit, observe, and telling people, well, I know there's a change coming, just make them feel comfortable with that. And just then telling them, we're going to do this together, because it's your organization. And at the end of the day, I will leave, but I would like to have you work with something, and make this, even feel that this is yours, and then take it to a next level.
Yeah, I relate to that so much, where I would be brought in under contract, and the first thing I would do is speak very humbly about what are your current challenges? What is the current, lay of the land, if you will? What are the, what is the history? And I never entered an organization where within the first few weeks I was changing something. Your first time in a team is evaluation. It's listening, ear to the ground, feeling the current emotion, evaluating the team for their synergies, for their roadblocks, finding that linchpin person on the team who's that silent leader, understanding that I'm here with you shoulder to shoulder. Yes, because I'm direct to senior leadership, I have the capacity. When I ask for something, you need to deliver it, but I'm here shoulder to shoulder with you, not to bring in something that is going to just add more time to your life or a headache, right? I'm here to understand shoulder to shoulder with you so that we can build this division, this team, this opportunity that's bringing you into an easier system, an easier framework of working on your day to day so that the company can be agile and the company can grow. And I think that shoulder to shoulder methodology really became an incredible asset that I was able to bring in because as you and I both have had, so many incredible leadership brands that we've been a part of, our toolbox is very robust. Regardless of the unique niche that the product is in, we do take that diversified knowledge of having worked through these strategies with so many different brands that we can come in and understand the average pitfall that we might be able to, that we tend to expect. And we can ask from that point of view, have you experienced XYZ? I've noticed it before. And it just opens that line of communication. Oh, you do know what I mean. You do know what I'm experiencing. And I think it elevates and it alters that engagement from day one.
I would actually mention it more just stepping into and approaching this more from a feminine point of view. And because when you come in and just being really action and result driven, that just takes away lots of engagement and just you're really losing relation or contact with people. So it's very good, like you mentioned, just listening what is needed, and from there on we can build this together. It just really, it is all about focusing on what is the best opportunity at some point and when, and just tapping in by listening, by communicating, by doing together, working together, and then showcasing what is needed to bring this to a next level.
Yeah, really, really powerful. That first energy that's brought into any change management scenario either puts up the walls or opens them down to conversation and communication, right? If you come in action and results oriented, you're forcing that team to put up their walls because now you're attacking them. Now you're coming in, aggressively or forcibly, and they don't feel safe. That safety is baseline number one. If you open the engagement with safety, with awareness, with approachability and accessibility, your results will happen so much faster. When you partner and you're shoulder to shoulder and you bring that camaraderie, that partnership, yes, authority, because you're coming in as an expert, but when you bring that camaraderie into the team and they can trust you, it changes the timeline. I've seen it time and time again, right? Bearing witness to the
True.
aggressive nature versus the collaborative nature.
It's the trust, it's the communication, it's willing to be open. It's a combination of all that. It's like you said, just not obviously you need to deliver. That is in the end of the day. But when you build on the trust and you deliver, that just builds on your credibility. And then people are very much willing to work for you and just to achieve things together with you. So it's a combination: listening, communicating, and also delivering. Promise and deliver what you promise. If people see that, they really will not doubt your credibility, and they will feel very loyal to work with you in this.
Let's talk next as we come up to a close for the day. Talk about the collaborative nature of the strategic partnerships that do come out of that expertise, and as you hinted in there, when you have the track record of results and the accessibility of your methods, talk about how it brings in the next client. Because I definitely noticed with that, once I got under one umbrella, my next project, my next contract was absolutely within that sister umbrella at another brand. And I loved that, right? Because once you are in one house and you start to work with one team and you optimize one team, it organically brings you into your next opportunity. As we close today, let's talk about that and how you saw opportunity and amplitude for your career through that aspect.
That's a very beautiful to mention. It's like you said, you're coming in as an authority, and you're doing your job. You're building on the trust. You're building on your credibility. So that is just like an oil, just drifting all over the place. And when people know that you're experienced and they see the results, and they hear that people are very satisfied and comfortable with your working, and just especially people will say, for to me they will say, oh, I don't like working with consultants, but working with you makes my life easier. That was just something, if they will say those were the most reluctant people on earth, you will mention actuaries, for example, or people working within IT, very structured based, very process driven. But then seeing them and taking this to a next level, and also seeing them doing things by themselves and talking with their managers or with bosses, or just saying, well, this really helps me within my work, and that is your success rate, and that helps you building this career within the same environment. But then just it's actually the free publicity that you're getting, because people are just saying, well, I'm very comfortable with her, I'm very satisfied with her job, and she really knows what she's talking about. She's very result driven, and I can really show you the results. This is what happened at some point, and I really needed to have that, even though she needed to work 12 14 hours a day. She did it, she delivered it. And now we're all benefiting from this. So that is just something. The world is very small. I think, even though when you think, for me also working in the financial services in the Netherlands, it's a very big world, but it's still a small environment, because the CEO will just change and go to a next position. So that is a small world, and people will know.
Yeah, I think you touch on something just so beautiful and powerful, where, your reputation carries quickly in these small arenas that run global corporations. And it is so critical, so crucial that you're trusted, that you don't bring chaos or nervousness to the reorganization process. When you bring ease and lightheartedness, and you go all in to make sure that their objectives are met, it is the most beautiful thing for us as the consultant, but for them as the leader, to know that I've got a new project, I've got a new initiative, I've got a friend in this other division running this other multi-million-dollar business that needs a change, and I know that I can bring in someone they can trust. And because it is all so synergistic and the networks are so small, it really does matter, because eventually, whatever division you worked in, you are probably going to touch it again. I know one of the very first things I ever did um, was building a product line for a company, and 6 years later I worked with them again, and that was still their number one product. And it's just so beautiful how, our work has legacy. When you bring in these new initiatives, when you bring in optimization to a division or a team, when you bring in this opportunity for people to feel empowered and know that they're being heard, that there's transparency that you've built into the culture, right? That has legacy. It is just the biggest gift and reward. I think for everybody watching and listening, you can see how much we love what we do, the passion which we possess for being that not agitator of change, but the softened path forward, right? The collaborative partner, the shoulder to shoulder person who brings ease into the new environment. So any final words as we wrap up for today, Marleen? It was such an incredible conversation.
Yes, thank you for that. I really love it. Just like you said, we just, when we talk about our work, you really feel this passion. I can really feel what you're meaning. You start to radiate on this. I really love that. I have the same, because it's like you said, it's just building something, and just people often perceive management consultancy as something intangible, which it is to some extent, but the tangible part here is that you're touching human lives in this. You're helping them, or taking them to a next level, and helping them see what is needed just to ease their life, and not to make it more difficult, or just to oppose something that they just cannot work with. So it's all about this balance that you're creating with them within their work and their life balance. So I think the intangibleness, yes, obviously that's true, but then the tangible, when you see someone smiling and just really see that they're very satisfied, or they really feel responsible and they really up to doing something new, to me that is the greatest gift in the world, and it's just that is very beautiful in my work.
Yeah, that lasting legacy where your work is maybe short term in contract, but long lasting in legacy. That is why we do what we do, and we absolutely love it.
Yes.
Wow. Thank you again for another incredible conversation today, Marleen. And for everybody watching now and in the future, thank you so much for tuning in with us. We hope to continue to bring you value and just awareness to new trends and opportunities that are existing within global and international business. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time.
Thank you.